There's a feeling that lives somewhere between your ribs and your throat. It doesn't have a name, but you know it. You've felt it. That moment when you walk into a room and every single person in it wishes you hadn't. That's where this story starts. My name is Alina. I'm 25 years old. And the day my grandfather's will was read out loud in a room full of people who share my blood, not a single one of them wanted me breathing the same air. Now, before I get into what happened, and trust me, what happened will sit with you for a while, I need you to understand something. This isn't one of those stories where the family was mostly good and one bad thing tore it apart. No, this family had been rotting from the inside for years. I just happened to be the one standing closest to the smell, pretending it was normal. I grew up in a house where love had conditions and silence was punishment. Where my father could look straight through me like I was made of glass. Not the beautiful kind, the kind you don't even notice until it breaks and cuts somebody. My mother smiled in public and froze me out in private. My sister collected praise like trophies, and my brother learned early that power in our family meant picking the right side, and the right side was never mine. So, when my grandfather died, the only person in that family who ever made me feel like I had weight, like I took up space that mattered, I expected to grieve alone, because that's what they trained me for, being alone in a crowded room. What I didn't expect was to be erased. See, nobody told me about the will reading. No call, no text, no quiet mention over awkward coffee. Nothing. And at first, I thought maybe they forgot. Maybe in the chaos of funeral arrangements and legal paperwork, my name just slipped through the cracks. But here's what I've learned about this family. Nothing slips. Everything is placed. I found out about the reading by accident. A cousin, distant enough to not be loyal to my father but close enough to know the details, let it slip during a phone call. Casual. Almost like she assumed I already knew. So, are you going tomorrow? To the lawyer's office? My stomach dropped. What lawyer's office? Silence on her end. Then a nervous little laugh. The kind people do when they realize they've just pulled a thread that's about to unravel something ugly. She told me. Time, place, all of it. And I sat there on the edge of my bed for a long time after that call, phone still warm in my hand, heart thudding slow and thick like a drum underwater. They hadn't forgotten me. They'd hidden it from me. There's a difference. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Now here's the part where most people would say, why go? Why put yourself through that? And honestly, I almost didn't. I almost let that old programming win, the one that whispers, stay small, don't cause trouble, you'll only make it worse. That voice had kept me alive in that house for 18 years. It taught me when to disappear, when to shrink, when to swallow words like stones and smile with a full mouth. But something had shifted. Maybe it was grief. Maybe it was age. Maybe it was the fact that my grandfather, the man who used to sit with me on the porch when everyone else was inside pretending I didn't exist, deserved to have me in that room. Whatever it was, I got dressed the next morning, drove 40 minutes in silence, and walked through that door. And the second I stepped inside, the whole room flinched. You know how you can feel hostility before anyone says a word? It's not in the eyes. It's in the shoulders, in the way people shift their weight, in the breath that catches just slightly too loud. That room was full of it. Thick, heavy, almost humid with it. My father was the first to speak. Not a greeting, not even a glance that lasted longer than a blink. Just a sentence thrown at me like a closed door. We've already handled everything. No chair for me, no place setting, no acknowledgement that I had any right to be standing where I was standing. Just 5 words designed to do what they'd always done, remind me I was outside the circle. My mother sat with her hands folded, eyes straight ahead like I was a stain on the wallpaper she'd trained herself not to notice. My sister looked annoyed, the way she always did when I showed up uninvited to my own life. My brother cracked his knuckles slowly, jaw tight, like my presence was a physical inconvenience. And for a moment, just a breath, I almost turned around, almost gave them what they wanted. One more disappearance, one more quiet exit, one more proof that I knew my place. But then I looked at the lawyer. He was sitting at the head of the table. Older man, glasses, neat suit, The kind of person who's seen 100 families fall apart over money and land and old grudges wearing new clothes. He should have been composed, steady, professional. He wasn't. His hands were shaking. Just slightly. Just enough. The papers in front of him trembled like leaves before a storm, and his eyes, they kept darting around the room, landing on everyone and staying on no one. But when they found me, something happened. Something quick and unreadable flickered across his face. And I knew. I didn't know what yet, but I knew something in that room was about to crack wide open. He cleared his throat. The sound was small, but in that silence, it landed like a gunshot. There's an issue. My father's head snapped toward him so fast I swear I heard his neck pop. What issue? The lawyer paused, looked down at the papers, then looked at me, and what he said next didn't just change the room. It changed everything. Her name, the lawyer said, his voice careful and deliberate, like a man walking across ice he wasn't sure would hold, is the only name on the will. He pointed at me. At me. Now I need you to imagine what happened next, because no combination of words I string together will fully capture it. But I'll try. Silence didn't just fall over that room, it detonated. The kind of silence that has teeth, the kind that grabs you by the chest and squeezes until your ears ring. Every person at that table froze in a different stage of collapse, like a photograph of a building the exact second before it hits the ground. My mother's face went blank, not calm, blank, like someone had reached inside her and unplugged whatever was keeping her expression human. My sister's hand stopped midair, her glass tilting at an angle that defied gravity for a full second before she caught it. My brother's fists balled up on the table so hard his knuckles turned the color of bone. I remember thinking, absurdly in the middle of everything, that his hands looked like they belonged to someone much older, someone who'd been clenching his whole life. And my father didn't freeze, he didn't flinch, he burned. His voice came out low, not loud, low, and if you've ever grown up around a dangerous man, you know that low is worse. Low is the sound before damage. That's not possible. But it was. The lawyer, to his credit, and I could see what it cost him, held steady. He laid the papers flat on the table and walked them through it. Every clause, every provision, every carefully worded paragraph that my grandfather had sat down, clear-minded and sharp-eyed, and dictated to this man over the course of multiple meetings. The house, the land, the accounts, every single thing my grandfather had spent a lifetime building. It had my name on it. Only my name. Written in language so tight, so airtight, so deliberately constructed that there wasn't a crack wide enough to slip a fingernail through. My grandfather had known what he was doing, and more than that, he'd known what they would try to do. My sister was the first one to snap. She slammed her glass down hard enough to make the table shudder, and her voice came out in that pitch I remembered from childhood, the one that meant she'd already decided she was the victim. You don't deserve it. 4 words, said with the kind of confidence that only comes from someone who's never once questioned their own entitlement. She looked at me like I'd stolen something, like I'd reached into her pocket while she wasn't looking and taken what was rightfully hers. My brother jumped in right behind her, already building the case. Grandpa didn't know what he was doing. He was confused at the end. He wasn't thinking clearly. Smooth, rehearsed almost, like he'd been practicing for a courtroom he hadn't reached yet. But the lawyer shut that down before it could breathe. That's not correct. His voice was quiet, but firm. The voice of a man who'd documented everything because he knew this exact moment would come. I met with him multiple times, over several months. He was fully competent, fully aware, he knew precisely what he wanted. And just like that, their narrative, the one they were already constructing in real time, brick by desperate brick, crumbled. You could feel it in the room. That shift. That moment when people realize they can't rewrite what's already been written. So they turned on me instead. My mother leaned forward, and her voice. God. Her voice. Cold doesn't even begin to describe it. Cold implies temperature. This was absence. This was the voice of a woman who had decided a long time ago that one of her children was expendable and had never once lost sleep over it. "You shouldn't even be here," she said. "We made sure of that." Let that land for a second. We made sure of that. Not, we forgot. Not, there was a miscommunication. Not, we assumed you wouldn't want to come. We made sure. She said it out loud, in front of a lawyer, in front of her other children, without a single tremor in her voice, like it was reasonable, like it was justified, like hiding a legal proceeding from your own daughter was just good planning. And something inside me, something I'd been carrying for years, this tangled, heavy, exhausting thing made of hope and hurt, and the stubborn belief that maybe if I just tried harder, loved better, stayed quieter, they'd eventually let me in. That thing finally untangled. Not violently, not dramatically. It just released, like setting down a bag you didn't realize was crushing your spine until your hands were empty. "You tried to erase me," I said. My voice was quiet, steady. I didn't recognize it, honestly. It didn't sound like the girl who used to rehearse apologies in the mirror. It sounded like someone who'd stopped asking for permission to exist. My father didn't deny it, didn't blink, didn't soften. "You've always been a disappointment." No hesitation, no flinch of regret, just a sentence delivered like a verdict from a man who'd been judge and jury my entire life. And here's the thing about hearing your father say that to your face, in a room full of people, with absolute certainty in his voice. It does break something. I won't pretend it doesn't. Something cracked inside my chest so sharp I almost pressed my hand against it to check for blood. But here's what they didn't expect. The break didn't make me smaller. It made me clearer, like a bone that heals back stronger, like a window that shatters, and suddenly, for the first time, you can actually see what's on the other side. I looked at him, really looked, and I didn't see a powerful man anymore. I saw a scared one, a man who had controlled his family like a kingdom and was watching the walls come down around him, and instead of examining what he'd built, he was blaming the earthquake. "You thought stealing my inheritance would fix that?" I asked. His hand came down on the table so hard the glasses rattled. "You don't deserve it!" And I looked down at that document, at my name, printed, typed, legal, permanent, put there by the one man in this family who saw me, who sat with me, who never once made me feel like I was too much or not enough. My grandfather didn't leave me everything because I was perfect. He left me everything because he knew they'd leave me nothing. "I do," I said. 2 words, calm, final. And the room had no answer for them. My brother leaned across the table, close enough that I could see the vein pulsing at his temple. His voice was soaked in something I'd heard 1,000 times growing up, that specific breed of anger men in my family used when they felt the ground shifting beneath them. "You think you can take everything after disappearing?" And here's where the old me would have stumbled, would have explained, would have launched into some desperate defense of where I'd been, why I left, how I'd had no choice. The old me would have handed them the narrative and let them twist it into something that made me the villain. But I was so tired of explaining myself to people who never once tried to understand. "I didn't disappear," I said. "I escaped." That word landed different than anything else I'd said. Not louder, not sharper, just truer. You could feel the oxygen shift, because somewhere underneath the anger and the denial and the clenched jaws and the tight fists, they knew. Every single one of them knew what I'd escaped from. The closed doors, the cold shoulders, the birthdays that felt like obligations, the dinners where I sat at the same table but ate alone, the years, God, the years, of being looked at like a mistake someone forgot to correct. This wasn't sudden. This was built, layer by layer, silence by silence. Every unanswered cry, every dismissed feeling, every time I reached for connection and grabbed nothing but air, it all led here, to this room, to this moment, to me, standing in front of people who shared my last name but never once shared their warmth. My sister stood up, and for the first time that day, her voice wasn't sharp. It was scared, genuinely, bone-deep, scared. "If you take this, you destroy this family." I almost laughed, not cruelly, sadly, because she actually believed that. She believed that this family, this fractured, frozen, performative thing we'd been calling a family, was something that could still be destroyed. Like it was whole. Like it was standing. "You did that," I said quietly. "Not me. She had nothing after that. None of them did." The lawyer slid the papers toward me, pen beside them, everything aligned, everything ready. "Sign here to accept." And the world slowed down. Not in a cinematic way. Not like the movies where music swells and the light changes. No, it slowed the way real life does when you're standing at the edge of something permanent. When you can feel the weight of every single thing that brought you to this exact second. Every wound, every whisper, every night you cried into a pillow and nobody came. I reached for the pen, put it down. My father's voice. But different now. The danger was gone. The authority was gone. What was left, and I swear I'll never forget this, was fear. Raw, undisguised, almost childlike fear. The voice of a man who had held everything in his grip for so long that the thought of losing control didn't just scare him, it unmade him. "You don't understand what you're doing," he said. I looked at him, and for the first time in my life, I didn't look up. "I understand something you never did," I said. "You can't control me anymore." The silence that followed was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. My sister's voice broke through it one last time. Small, cracked, almost a whisper. "Please, don't take everything." I looked at her, and I didn't look away. I let myself really see her, the panic, the desperation, the way her hands gripped the edge of the table like the floor might open beneath her. And for the first time in as long as I could remember, I didn't feel small standing next to her. "I had nothing," I said, "and none of you cared." That was it. No shouting, no dramatic monologue. Just the truth, spoken plainly, without apology. And the truth doesn't need volume. It just needs to be said out loud, once, by someone who's finally done swallowing it. My mother made one last attempt, the way she always did, wrapping control in something that sounded like love. "We raised you." I let those words sit for a second, turned them over in my mind like a stone I'd been carrying in my pocket for years. "No," I said calmly. "You taught me how to survive you, and that was enough." I signed, slow, steady, every letter deliberate, not rushed, not angry, just done. My father stood, his final card, the one he'd always played when nothing else worked. "If you walk out with that, you're no longer part of this family." I stopped at the door, felt the weight of those words settle over me the way they were designed to. Heavy, suffocating, final. The ultimate threat from a man who believed belonging to him was the greatest thing he could offer. And then I let it go. "I already wasn't," I said, "and I'm done pretending." I walked out, no looking back, no hesitation, no dramatic pause where I reconsidered and ran back into their arms. None of that. Just my shoes on the hallway floor and the sound of a door closing behind me that I would never open again. The courthouse was quiet that afternoon. Cold marble, fluorescent lighting, the kind of place where life-changing things happen in the most unremarkable settings. A clerk stamped the documents, handed them back to me, and said something procedural that I don't even remember. But I remember the feeling. Not happiness, not revenge, not even relief exactly. Freedom. The kind that doesn't announce itself. The kind that settles into your bones slowly, like warmth returning to hands that have been cold for so long you forgot they were supposed to feel anything at all. My phone buzzed the whole drive home. Calls, texts, voicemails that started with accusations and ended with threats. I didn't open a single one, because access to me is a privilege, and they lost it. When I stepped into that house later, my grandfather's house, my house now, I stood in the hallway for a long time, just breathing. No voices telling me I was too much. No silence designed to make me feel like nothing. No invisible weight pressing against my chest every time I walked through a door. Just quiet, real, honest, earned quiet. And it hit me. Standing there in the fading light, dust floating through the air like the house itself was exhaling after holding its breath for years. This was never about the money, never about the land or the accounts or the legal documents with my name printed across them in black ink. This was about taking myself back. from the people who made me believe I wasn't worth keeping, from the voices that taught me to apologize for breathing, from every version of myself I'd abandoned just to fit inside a space they never intended to make room for. So if you're listening to this and something in your chest is tightening, if you know what it feels like to be unseen by the people who were supposed to see you first, hear me. Don't beg for a seat at their table. Don't shrink yourself to fit inside their approval. Don't spend your life knocking on a door that was never going to open. Walk away. Build your own room, set your own table, and let them feel the weight of your absence. Because nothing teaches people your value faster than the moment they realize they've lost access to you. Some endings don't shatter you, some endings set you free. This one set me free.